Hello, everybody. Ella J here on behalf of a wrestling gal, and today I am joined by the plant-based powerhouse Ellie Armstrong. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Me too. I'm so happy to speak from Ella to Ellie.
Yes.
Sometimes my friends call me Ellie, so sometimes I
Yeah.
am Ellie myself, depending on who I'm talking to. So I'm so
Yeah.
excited to catch up with you here today. Obviously, we'll talk a lot of wrestling, but I wanted to start with something non-wrestling, maybe
Ooh.
intertwines, who knows. I had to give you serious props because I've come to discover that you're kind of a genius, Ellie. You graduated with a master's degree in physics a few
Yes,
years
I
ago,
did.
which is something I would never be able to do. So I give you big
Oh,
kudos. That is
thank
seriously
you.
impressive. Lots of schooling, obviously. We'll talk about it. But first, what was your motivation behind the pursuit of this particular degree, and when did your interest in this field really blossom?
Well, I have never been like I know it's weird now that I'm doing wrestling and I people do consider it an art, but I've never been an arty person.
Yeah.
I'm a maths and science girly all the way, and maths was always my favorite subject at school, which no one ever says, but it was mine. I loved maths. But something about physics. I think you got to do maths in a fun way instead of just numbers. So I went physics and then, yeah, just was like, okay, physics is my favorite subject. I'll just apply for it at university. And it just kind of, I got to like my honors bachelor's thing and I was like, I still don't know what I want to do. So I'm just going to do another year and we'll do a master's and then we'll decide what we'll do after there.
Now, obviously, you've dedicated a lot of your time to wrestling in
hmm
recent years. But like you said, you have your degree now. Have you utilized your degree in any way since graduating? And if not, what is your plan within the physics realm, down the line?
Yeah, well, I actually didn't even start my wrestling training until my master's year of
Yeah,
university, so I already had my degree.
yeah.
But so I am using it. I work for the NHS in the UK, so I'm a nuclear medicine technician
Um,
in training. So yeah, that's how I use my physics degree. Get to inject people with radiation. It's fun.
Yeah, I feel like, that's really cool getting to blur. Living your best life. You have the best of both worlds. You have
Yeah.
professional wrestling and you also have your love for math and science
hmm
intertwined into that. And then I'm so curious though, looking back on your studies, you had again, it's probably called something very different in the UK. I don't know. I don't know what you guys call undergrad, your bachelor's
Yeah.
degree program and then master's. Looking at all the courses that you've taken across the board, what has been the most fun course that you've taken, whether it's related to your physics program or not?
I think if we're talking like university course, I think the favorite thing I did in university was computational physics because it just made me feel like a bit of a hacker. Like it was the only time we got to code on our course, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, even though we were just making graphs, I still felt like a mad hacker. And then work-wise, I think the best course I think I've done recently would probably be like my first aid course. So I'm now like certified for CPR and stuff like that. So I feel good knowing I can give anyone
Yeah.
CPR if need be, any anaphylaxis treatment as well. I can do that. And then wrestling course, I think the best wrestling seminar I've been on recently, the one that comes to mind was the Mark Andrews one. That was really fun. He's such a nice guy and he was so involved and he had us doing stuff that I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that because I'm not really a flippy gal.
Yeah.
But he was like, no, you can do it. You can do it. And it wasn't perfect, but I could do it. And he was really encouraging. So he was really good.
What are some of the specific things you either learned about yourself or about wrestling through the Mark Andrews seminar?
I think, well, I've always known that I'm a bit of a, I'm a bit of a scaredy cat. So like I'll see something, especially if it involves a flip, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, can't do that. And then, but everyone who knows me goes, yeah, we know you can. Like you're not going to be perfect, but if there's a crash mat there, we know you can do it. I'm like, yes, I know, but I need to psych myself up. I'll literally be like, I had like my first training school that I was at in the GPWA asylum. I
Yeah.
had an absolute reputation for just being a crybaby and just bursting into tears because I was too scared of doing something, then I would do it immediately, like 3 seconds later. So that was my reputation when I started training.
You know what? I can imagine that too. I'm also a bit of a crybaby. Maybe it's because I'm a water sign on the zodiac scale. Maybe that has something to do with it. But sometimes you need to push yourself, outside your comfort
Yeah.
zone, and I'm assuming you're in an environment where there's a lot of trainers around that, they can teach you how to safely
Yeah.
do stuff, and maybe there's crash pads or something near you. But I feel like sometimes we need to push ourselves,
Yeah.
safely anyways.
Yeah. Like,
But it seemed
but
you were in a
landing
safe
on the
environment.
crash mats, it still, if you land wrong on the crash mat, it still hurts a wee bit. So
That is
like,
true.
you still sometimes need to get over that wee mental,
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to die. It's okay. I'm not. I'll be fine.
Yeah. Wrestling is unpredictable. It's an
hmm
inherently, risky business, so there is always that
Yeah.
risk. But I feel like sometimes we do need to push ourselves. Do you feel like you've gotten better then in recent years and being more not fearless, but pushing yourself a little bit more?
Oh, definitely. Like even last night, at training at Iron Girders, we were doing a wee drill, and BT Gunn, our head coach, he was like, "We're just going to do this drill. We're going to do this suplex at the start of it." And it was a like a wrist lock Northern Lights variation, and I was like, "I've never done one of these before. That looks terrifying. I don't know what I'm doing." And he knows me, and he was like, "Do you want to do it with the crash mat first?" And I was like, "No, no, I know I can do it. I'm just like," he could see the look on my face, and I was like, "No, no, I know I can do it. I've watched all the guys do it now. I know, just lock my arms, I'll be fine." But I think I have gotten better in that sense where I knew there, like, I think even last year I would have been gone, "No, get the crash mat out. Let me have a go first." But I was like, "No, I trust the guy I'm in with. We'll go well. We'll go well."
Yeah, I feel like that comfortability too also has to do with, experience. And obviously, it's been over 3 years since your debut and you had a couple years of training before that. But I feel like in life in general, the more reps you get, the more comfortable you get.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes you need that little crutch if you need that crash mat, if you want, you always have that at least,
Yeah.
but you're moving forward, which is always good to see. And I'm so curious. You said obviously you've always been a math and science person, and then
hmm
obviously wrestling came pretty relatively recently for you,
Yeah.
2016-ish. If you look back to your childhood self, what did the younger version of Ellie envision the older version of Ellie doing for a living when she got older? Was it always kind of math sciencey, or what were your younger aspirations?
Well, one of my first ever jobs I wanted to be was a marine biologist, so that was pretty sciencey. But my mum likes to tease me, so I can't remember the name of this show, but it was a really popular children's show in the UK. And it was basically this woman and her dog would get in her plane and they'd fly off. And it would basically take you like behind the scenes of it's usually like a factory or how it was made sort of thing. And I remember really vividly they had one episode where she went behind the scenes in like a dry cleaners. And I remember my mum teases me about this to this day that I wanted to be a dry cleaner for a good month when I was like 7 or 8 because I'd seen this episode and I was like, "Oh, that looks so cool." And I think I'm the only child that's ever thought, "I'm going to be a dry cleaner."
You know what's funny is I don't know how I've ended up on like dry cleaner TikTok a few months ago. Some of them, depending where it is, can make bank. Like I've seen
Yeah.
them like take like it's normally like quarters or coins
hmm
or money. I've seen them empty like the machine and I'm like, they're making bank depending like what
Yeah.
city it's in. So I'm like, that doesn't sound too bad. Granted, you have to invest in all the equipment and
Yeah.
stuff first, but I was watching a few of them who own their own like dry cleaning service and I'm
hmm
like, you can make bank like
Yeah.
depending where it is.
I've
So
seen those TikToks and watching them
mhm.
empty it, I'm like, oh, to my partner, I'm like, should we buy? But no one really uses those kind of
Yeah.
like it's not a big thing in the UK at all. Like
Mm,
it's really just like I suppose in the like London maybe, but Glasgow we don't really have many
yeah.
laundrettes at all.
Maybe something in
I
the future.
could
Maybe it's
start
for
it.
something when you
I
get
could
older.
start
Or you
it.
can start, yeah, you can start your own
Yeah.
business, down the line. You have a vision. You have a
Yeah.
vision potentially. Obviously another big part of your identity, ties into your wrestling persona, and that's obviously the fact you are a proud 7-year vegan now, over
Yeah.
7 years.
I
What
know.
initially sparked this lifestyle change for you?
Um, so I went vegetarian for about 8 months first,
Okay.
and that was purely because I worked in a shop at the time, and it was in a shopping center, and the only lunch options were McDonald's, Subway, KFC, and a fish and chip shop. So
Mm.
I was constantly just having like a double cheeseburger for my lunch, and it was so unhealthy. And I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to go vegetarian because I don't like any of the vegetarian options that these establishments have. So this will force me to make my lunch, bring in a sandwich, and I did it and for 8 months. And then actually, I think it was Trent Seven tweeted a link to a BBC Three like mockumentary. It was like a kind of comedy take on a documentary, but it was about if the UK went fully vegan in like 50 years' time, and then it was like seen as wrong to eat meat, and it was like a kind of comedy thing. But I watched that, and they had like some hard hitting bits in it, and I remember watching that, and I was going, do you know what? They're right. Like, I never actually thought that like, oh yeah, the cows do have to be pregnant to make the milk, and it was just that kind of like the cognitive dissonance kind of shifted in my brain, and I was like, I can't touch it anymore. And it was like an overnight from there. So I was already vegetarian, but for completely different reasons. And then I watched that, and it was a comedy thing as well. So it's weird. It wasn't even one of the ones that are meant to turn you. It was like a comedy
Yeah.
thing. And I watched this, and I'm like, oh no, I can't. And I went to my mum the next day, and I was like, Mum, I'm not touching any animal products anymore. You can still do it, but I'm not going to do it. And then, yeah, 7 years still doing it.
Maybe sometimes comedy can be effective. It
Yeah.
swayed you, and I'm sure it swayed some other people too. Sometimes I guess
Hmm.
you don't need to be as hard hitting or, serious about stuff. You can take the comedy route, and you've stuck with it too.
Yeah.
I'm so curious, what are some of your favorite vegan meals and or snacks?
Well, favorite vegan snack is I don't think you get this flavor of Dorito in
Okay.
America because I couldn't find it when I was in New York, but it's chili heat wave, we
We
call
do
it
have
here.
that.
Do you have that right? I
Yeah.
couldn't find it in New York at all, so raging.
Hmm.
But that's my favorite vegan snack because that's always been vegan, and I ate that before I went vegan, so I didn't really need to change much there. Favorite vegan meal at the moment is what we had for dinner tonight, actually, which is just falafel and hummus wraps, some lettuce, some vegan Greek cheese in there. Lovely.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. This is just curiosity, and it's totally okay if you
Hmm.
don't know the answer. Do you know like what makes it vegan cheese? Like I'm so because I am such a cheese person.
Hmm.
What is in said vegan, if you even know, what is in said vegan cheese?
So the stuff I use, I think it's coconut oil. So I think that's how, but you get some that are made with like cashew. I know like a lot of restaurants in Glasgow use cashew cheese. Um, but apart from that, I don't really know. But I was the complete opposite. I wasn't a big dairy person
Mm.
when I ate it. Like I would have it in
Yeah,
stuff, but I would never have like a cheese sandwich.
that's
Whereas
fair.
now I would. So I think I might just like the taste of vegan cheese because I know like that's the one thing my partner's like. He's pretty much 90% vegan, but he will not compromise on cheese. And
Yeah.
I'm like, fair. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Like,
I'm a big cheese addict, honestly.
hmm.
Like it's one of my favorites. So I completely understand with your
Yeah.
partner and all that. I was just so curious about it.
Hmm.
And like we said, you are proud to spread the vegan propaganda into your
Yeah.
professional wrestling work, as you are known as the plant-based powerhouse.
Yeah.
Was this plant-centered character something you always envisioned for yourself, or did your initial character vision go down another route?
Yeah, like I think when I first started training, I kind of always wanted to be like I always had an envision that I would be like the spooky gal and I would be, but there was a lot of girls, especially on the
Yeah.
Scottish scene, that were going down that route at the time. We had like Abel, we had Raven Creed over from Ireland, so there was a lot of girls doing the spooky thing, and I was like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
There's too many. And then I was like, that I can is it Austin that always says the best wrestler is just you dialed up to 11? And I was like,
Yeah.
well, what does everyone tease me about? Being a vegan. Okay, I'll just make that my whole thing. So
And
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you live it, you exude it, and it makes it easier, I feel like, to, crank it up in the ring to obviously with some exaggeration to it. It's
Yeah.
leveled yourself up. But a big part of your character is also your presentation. And I know you typically like to incorporate brighter colors such as green,
Mhm.
orange, pink, blue into your gears. But what would you say are your general sources of inspiration when it comes to crafting and envisioning your ring gear designs?
It's definitely Taylor Swift. Like, I can't even lie and say it's not, especially right now. Even the orange one is very subtly Taylor Swift inspired. I think the
Yeah.
green one with the snakes is very obvious. That's Reputation. I basically just sent the guy, I can't remember his name, that's so bad, but the guy I got to design that gear, I basically sent him her Reputation outfit from the eras tour, and I was like, can you make this a green singlet, please? But the orange one's a bit more subtle. So when she was doing the Midnights promo before the album was released, there's a photo of her like lying on a couch and like an orange and burgundy like top and jeans. And I was like, I need orange gear now. And I was like, the vibe was giving me pure 70s. So I was like, I found that fabric for the sleeve and it had like the peace signs and like this. And I was like, oh, that's pure like early 70s like hippie vibe. And then I was like, we'll get the burnt orange. And then it's very subtle Taylor Swift, but it's still Taylor Swift. Like I can't even lie.
You kind of perfect transition this because I was going to bring it up later. I want to reel it back to about a month ago, actually, at the time of this, maybe 5 weeks ago. You attended the Eras tour in
Yeah.
Edinburgh. Tell us about your experience there.
Oh, it was amazing. A literal, I think it was over a year in the making when we bought, because the tickets for our shows went on sale so far in advance.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got to go to 2 nights. She played Crazier live for the first time, which was
Oh,
insane. Like to the point where like I felt so bad that I went with my partner both nights and he liked Paramore, so he was fine coming and he
yeah.
secretly likes Taylor Swift as well. He just won't admit it. But I kept like chopping him every time. I was like, oh, every surprise song, I was like, oh my God. Yes. And when she played Getaway Car, I was like, oh, I'm gone, right. She's played I was just raging because Edinburgh Night 3 was the one I didn't get tickets for, and she played Dorothea, and that's my cat's name. And I was like, no, you couldn't have played that one of the other nights, Taylor. No, I named my cat after this song.
Yeah.
I was fuming. I was actually crying. But
Ugh. Now, when did your Taylor Swift fandom actually begin?
I've always like, I've always liked Taylor Swift. I've got like vivid memories of getting like the bus to school and listening to our song but
Yeah.
like really quiet on my headphones because I was like, because I grew up in quite a rough, not a rough bit of Falkirk, but it was the bit of Scotland I was in. Everyone at the time, if you were popular, you were into like happy hardcore, as we called it in the UK. So I was like, I'm going to turn this down because I don't want anyone to think I'm listening to country music. And then when Love Story came out, it was obviously like, and then it kind of just, it was like just the kind of like, I listened to all the hits. I would dip in and out of the albums, but I
Mhm.
think when Reputation came out, I was like, no, I'm obsessed. Lover came out, I was like, oh no, I'm even more obsessed. And
Yeah.
then I genuinely, I don't know how because I moved out into my own flat for the first time ever. So I was living on my own at the start of the pandemic, like great timing for me. And I honestly think if Folklore hadn't come out, I don't know, that just made that whole bit of the pandemic so much better because I was like, oh, I can, oh, new Taylor Swift. And it was
Yeah.
now I think back to that early pandemic as like a positive time because there was no Taylor Swift and it was very exciting, as opposed to all I'm doing is going to work and then coming home and sitting by myself, you know?
Yeah. It's like you had a little bit of like a companion there with you
Yeah.
in a sense that you could kind of relate to. Now, I'm not going to make you narrow it down to one, but let's say there's three to five. Maybe Dorothea is one that you named your cat
Mhm.
after. I mean,
Yeah.
it has to be on there. What would you say your top three to top five Taylor Swift songs of all time?
Dorothy is definitely one. I'm not going to put them in order because the order
Okay,
changes,
no problem.
but Dorothea, yeah, because I named my wee cat after that. Um, Love Story for sure. Like just a timeless banger. Oh, I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna watch this episode back and I'm gonna be like, why didn't you say this song?
There's so many
Um,
though in her
I know
discography, so
she she does. Betty as well, but that was my grand's name. So when I seen the when before I'd even listened to it and I looked at the track list when she dropped it, I was like, oh my God, a song called Betty. That's my granny's name. Oh, and I still love it. Like it's a great song. Um, Style, easy choice, but you got to. And then one more. This is like asking me to pick between my favorite children. Right now, one that I'd completely forgotten about, and then this actually, it completely gone out of my mind. And then when I was looking through like, oh, what would I like my surprise song to be? Um, I'm Only Me When I'm With You. So like a proper old school one. And I was like, no, I can't believe I forgot this banger. So I'm gonna go with
yeah.
that one. Underrated.
Yeah, there's a lot of good songs in her discography.
Hmm.
I'm kind of the first half of your story, I'm kind of me personally, I was obviously big into like self-titled, Fearless, Speak Now and then Red. After Red, I kind of fell off. I feel like that's
Hmm.
also when she kind of started shifting away from like country Taylor and went more
Yeah.
like poppy, kind of indie. I know like all the hits and all of that, but if we're like I know Red and before can name pretty much all of them, but after that I feel like a little I still like her though, you know.
Yeah.
I've never disliked her. But obviously, she's huge in the UK. That's awesome. Was that your
Hmm.
first like Taylor Swift concert
Yeah.
experience?
Because
Yeah.
it was the first time because our obviously Lover tour got cancelled, but then
Yeah.
she hadn't done Scotland since maybe either the Fearless or the Speak Now tour. I can't remember.
Mm,
Probably Fearless, but I was too young
long
to go then.
time.
My mum
Yeah.
wasn't in for taking me.
Yeah.
And then the other ones were all in England, and I just didn't have the money to go down to England. So this was my first time actually getting to see her live, which was
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah, and 2 nights, you know.
Two
Man, you got to
nights.
hear crazier. Oh, I would have
Yeah.
loved to hear that. Oh man, that brings me back. Good times, you know. Obviously, shifting back to wrestling, we were mentioning earlier, obviously it's been 3 years since your debut. You trained for
Yeah.
several years before that. As you assess your career thus far, I feel like one of them we were kind of talking about earlier, taking more risks and being more comfortable. How else do you think you've grown as a person and as a competitor thus far?
I think just my confidence has shot up. Like I go back and watch that first match quite a lot, or even wee clips from it, and I take so many wee steps. Like even like it breaks in the action, I'm just like you can tell how nervous I am, and especially like my first entrance. Obviously, it was difficult because it was a store taping. There was no crowd, so it was very different to what I had imagined in my head my first time coming through the curtain was going to be like. So, but I watched that first entrance and I'm like, there's nothing going on behind those eyes. I'm just petrified. So I think just general stage presence persona has grown and confidence as well. Like, I don't think I had the confidence back then, but I was kind of just flung in and I was like, I'm sure I'll be fine. I don't think I was fine looking back. I think the match is still a good match, but it could have been better. But I'm always going to say that. You always want yourself to be better than before.
Yeah, I was gonna say, nobody's gonna start out, especially even if you have all the training in the world, it's your official debut match. There's already
Yeah.
inherent pressure and stuff. But like you said, you really only can go up from there. And
Yep.
obviously you've done that and you've been surrounded by so many veterans in the business and
Yeah.
trainers, of course. So is there a certain piece of advice or words of wisdom that has really stuck with you in your career thus far? And who did it come from?
I think hmm, there's been no like specific one piece of advice, but
Okay.
the one thing I've had like over and over and over again from people, especially when I'm like, and I kind of like, oh, there's loads of like input coming from different directions, especially like different promotions are wanting you to do different things. One trainer's saying this, one trainer's saying that, is just to like trust your gut. Like, especially when I started doing like that pose, people kept telling me, "Oh no, don't do that. It looks a bit daft." And I was like, "Oh, but I like doing that. Like, I know I've not got the most toned biceps in the world, but I've still got pretty big arms. Like, they
And
still
you got
hurt."
cool tattoos to look at, girl.
Exactly. So I was like, they'll still gonna hurt when you hit you. I might not be have that bodybuilder physique, but there is muscle and there is gonna hurt when I clothesline you. And I think it's just fun to do that. It's a fun silhouette to have. So, but I had a lot of different people going, no, I don't think you should be doing that. I don't think you should be doing that. I think you should do it like this. And I was like, but that's not me. And I do stick to even whether I'm a baby face, whether I'm a heel, what you're seeing out there now, especially now, is me, how I'm interpreting those roles. I'm not gonna come out and like act different, especially because you're telling me to. Obviously, if I got signed, a big company wanted me to act a certain way, then maybe. But right now, I want to focus on building me.
Yeah, yeah, of course, and I feel like it's kind of just uplifting in general,
Hmm.
you got to uplift yourself, before you
Yeah.
can really uplift others. Two more questions for you. You talk about people who are kind of influential in your career. I know somebody else who's been very influential on you is the current WWE Women's Champion, Bayley. What
Yes.
about her specifically resonates with you, and how has she impacted you personally?
I think Bailey was one of the, so when I was first getting into wrestling, obviously I got in pretty late
Yeah.
in my life, but it was my ex my ex partner who introduced me to him, to Bailey, and he was like, because I always had the impression in my head of women's wrestling being bra and panties matches,
Yeah.
like 1 minute they don't really care. And he was like, no, no, it's not like that anymore. It's not like I'm going to show you this match. And he showed me Sasha Bailey Iron Man match. And I was like, oh no, no, you're right. They can go. And then there's just something about Bailey's hugger persona that if you're getting into wrestling for the first time, it's just so joyful. And you just feel like, and everyone loves an underdog, and she was an underdog at the time. So you're like, yes, I can root for this. So happy and so joyful. And then even now, as she's evolving, obviously the hugger gimmick had to go. I was sad when it went, but it did
Same.
have to go. It broke my heart. And then seeing her be like that kind of cocky heel, great on the mic, like you want to hate her, but you can't. And then transitioning back into the baby face where it was kind of like she still has the wee underdog edge, but it's not really there anymore. Like she's the vet, she's the goat. She's my goat. I don't care what anyone else says. Bailey is my goat. The day she won Money in the Bank and then cashed it in the same night, I couldn't watch it live, and I had loads of people texting me going, "You're gonna watch Money in the Bank later. You're gonna love it." And I was like, "What happened? What happened?" And when she won it, I was like, "Oh my God, I see what people are talking about. This is so exciting." And I was texting them all back, "Yeah, like yeah, I loved it. I loved it." And they were like, "You're not done yet, are you?" And I was like, "What? What's about to go down?" Oh, that was so exciting. But yeah, just the way she's managed to evolve her character, but still, I feel like she's still the same Bailey. Like the Bailey we're seeing now and the Hugger Bailey, you can still tell that they're the same person. It's not like a complete like that's a different person.
Yeah.
You can see her growth through that.
Yeah, she's back now, babyface. I feel like she'll, especially when she's babyface, you can always see those hugger roots in there.
Yeah.
But it's been an interesting story. It was like one of those dramatic things. It's like we never, I mean, granted, it didn't really happen, like a John Cena heel turn.
Hmm.
It's like something you never thought would happen. Still hasn't happened, but it was one of those dramatic things like you never thought, like this person, such a baby face, like a Rey Mysterio too. You're like,
Yeah.
nah, that's never gonna happen. Same with Roxanne Perez, I would say too.
Yeah.
They were so over as a baby face and beloved that it's like they should stay a babyface, but then when they
Hmm.
turn, just created magic. And obviously
Yeah.
now she's come back. She's no longer the hugger, but she is, back over as a babyface, and she's your champion. She's also Ellie's goat. I have to agree
Yeah.
with her. You can't really see it because of the glare, but I got that
Yeah.
damage control hanging up behind me. She's one of my all-time favorites as well. So I
Yeah.
totally understand that. Very sweet person too in person as well.
Oh.
Final question, as we're looking towards the future now, what are some of your personal and professional goals for the next year or two?
Um, Professional in wrestling, main one, get my championship back. I don't
I
feel I lost
know.
that. I was never pinned. I was never submitted. I just had a wee accident with a steel chair that happened to distract me while Nicole Jasmine got the pin. And now both the gals somehow holding my belt. I don't know, but I'll take them both on at the same time. I'll pin them both if I need to, but I feel like I've still not even had my rematch.
Gotta get it back
So
from Debbie.
I've got to get it back. And a single, even just a singles match with Debbie would be a goal of mine. And I was meant to have one. Lucy Sky managed to weasel her way in. So a singles match with Debbie for sure. I'd like another. I think my main goal though this year, and I've had a lot of feedback on this from people that I respect, saying you just need to get. I need to get myself out there more. So traveling to more schools, whether that be schools in Scotland or maybe going to one of OTT's weekend seminars down to England for some seminars with coaches there. I just want to get myself out there a wee bit more.
Maybe we can get you. You said you've been to New York. Maybe we can get you in the States here in
Oh,
the
I'd
future
love to
too.
come back to the States. I loved it there.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. We'll have to see in the future. First, focus on getting that title back because, like you said, you
Yeah.
were never pinned and you were never submitted. Also, you were the inaugural champ, too.
Yeah.
So early on in your career, too,
Hmm.
as well. Being the first ever champion of a company, big responsibility. You held it for a while. Obviously, still never pinned or submitted. Now we got to get
No.
that gold back on you, girl.
Yes. That my route to the gold starts now. Starts now.
Before we let you go, please let the listeners know where they can find you on social media and support you.
So my Instagram is at elliearmstrong.pw. My Twitter is at elliearmstrong.pw, but there's a rogue I in there somewhere, so you might just need to search Ellie Armstrong on Twitter or X. And then
Twitter.
on TikTok, it is at eyelid with four Ds.
I love it. Ellie, thank you so much for joining me here today. It's been an absolute pleasure getting a chat with you.
Thank you so much, Ella. I had such a great time. Thank you so much.